It's a beautiful Tuesday, the 27th of February 2024, and a warm welcome to you all for joining this special virtual 90-minute session by West Africa Democracy Radio, Dakar, Senegal, purposely to celebrate a century of radio's existence. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Now, for those listening via radio on 94.9 FM and streaming live on WADR.org, again, thank you for joining us. Today's webinar is a continuation of WADR's celebration of this year's World Radio Day in relation to many of the values that WADR represents and promotes as a regional broadcaster. The online engagement will highlight the role of radio in strengthening democracies in West Africa. A discussion that brings on board is radio journalists, panelists, and participants. At least from records, radio has existed in this part of the world for nearly a century and has contributed in informing, educating, and entertaining the populace. The primary functions, right? But unconsciously, too, radio became an integral part of African society, a reference point, a wave knowledge hub, and a platform on which national discourse was, is, and will continue to drive positive development in all aspects, including politics and governance, economy, security, social issues, and just about everything. To officially get started, WADR's station manager, Agnes Tomasi, a seasoned broadcast journalist and communication expert, joins us for an opening remark to help us build the base to further converse on the purpose of this virtual meeting. Good morning, Madam Tomasi. It's over to you. Yes, I'm on.
No, Madam, you may have to unmute yourself, please.
WADR coordination team and the entire staff. It's a warm greeting from my end. Today is a great day and another milestone in the WADR history. We have been celebrating World Radio Day, most of the time in partnership with UNESCO and other organizations through radio programs produced and aired in simple form. However, this year, we are happy to have you all on board at this virtual ceremony and live panel discussion. As I welcome you all to the event, I also take this opportunity to thank you all for the time taken to join us despite your busy schedule. I also take this opportunity to thank the coordination team and all staff of WADR who continue to make this radio a tool for development in the region. For a century or almost a century, radio has been a powerful tool in this region, a powerful agent of change in the process of our development. With its ability to access diverse people universally, cross-language barriers and socio-economic differences, radio remains an indispensable tool to promote and advance democratic principles in West Africa. For about 19 years, a period spanning almost 2 decades, I can say, the West Africa Democracy Radio has been functioning as an information hub, serving as a platform for dialogue, empowering citizens of the region and beyond through the provision of quality and relevant information. In this regard, I am happy to say that for us at WADR, we continue to provide that platform that offers our audiences the opportunity to engage in critical discourse and amplify the voices, most especially of the underprivileged. Our core value and niche has not only been to provide information, but doing so through a network of strong partner radio stations in communities where access to conventional media still remains a challenge. That is why we respect and always applaud the work of our partner radio stations, recognizing them in everything we do. This webinar and live panel discussion is therefore part of our celebration of radio and celebrating our partners and its power to provide information that can change lives and livelihoods. So partners, know that whatever you're doing, wherever you are, you're doing a marvelous job. With the recent developments in West Africa, leading to the weakening of democratic principles in some of our countries in the region, particularly Guinea, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and even now Senegal, the role of radio remains crucial, and one of the ways to strengthen our democracies is to facilitate inclusive public discourse. It is for this reason that this panel on the theme, the role of radio in strengthening democracies in West Africa, is organized to provide the opportunity for our audiences in the sub-region and beyond to express their views and actively participate in governance and decision-making. It is our vision at WADR that this forum will contribute to amplifying voices and empowering citizens of the region to actively participate in the democratic discourse. This is very important. As we continue to celebrate World Radio Day, let us honor the power of radio to promote peace, social justice, and contribute to strengthening democracies. On this note, I welcome you all. Thank you and wish you a fruitful discourse.
Well, thank you, Madam Agnes Tomasi, for that very intriguing and exciting introduction to today's webinar. And stepping up this online session is my colleague, Imo Edit. Imo, good morning.
Thank you so much, Abdullah, and good morning to our participants and our partners joining us across the sub-region. And also good morning to you there, Madam Tomasi, and congratulations on your presentation. Oh, well, Abdullah, thank you so much for starting off this program. We will take it off from this end, and we will be going forth to introduce our panelists and also set the ball rolling in this program. Well, just like you have heard from our station manager there, just to remind you again, the theme for this event is the role of radio in strengthening democracy in West Africa. And it's coming to you from West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM live on all of our platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and also we're streaming on our website, wadr.org. Let me also inform you that this event is rebroadcast live on Alternative Youth Radio, 98.9 FM, Lofa County in Liberia. And as such, we welcome our listeners and participants in that country. Now, proclaimed in 2011 by the member states of UNESCO and adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 2012 as an international day, of course, February 13 became World Radio Day, which we are celebrating today. Now, the world is celebrating radio because it has served in a century informing, entertaining, and educating. This year's World Radio Day theme brings to the fore how long this medium has been impacting lives, changing narratives, and guiding communities. And as for us at West Africa Democracy Radio, our works and messages have flown down to various communities through this across the sub-region and beyond through our partner stations in most cases, difficult to reach areas like you heard there in Madam Thomas's speech. So we continue to celebrate them, and we truly we're honored to have you all join us this morning. Well, without wasting much time, let me proceed to introduce our panel members and also let you know.
There is no audio. Audio is gone. Audio is gone from your side.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kwabo, for bringing attention to that. Well, we understand that if you can hear us, can you hear us now? Is this better?
There is no audio.
Okay, so I'm sure our, well, I think it's fine now. It's fine now if you can check. Well, so let me go ahead and introduce our panelists and, of course, those that will be joining us in the conversation. Let me start from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. Joining us is Adams Momo. He is the head of programs at ASO Radio and Television, Abuja, Nigeria. Adams Momo is a pioneer staff of Abuja's first FM radio station, ASO Radio, and he holds a master's degree in mass communication. His exceptional skills and expertise have led to his appointment as head of programs of ASO Radio Abuja since 2013. In this prestigious role, Adams leads a team of esteemed professionals towards creating compelling content for radio. He's also a pioneer member of the Society of Nigerian Broadcasters. Mr. Momo, you are welcome to the program. Well, also joining us on the panel is Umaru Sanda Amadu. Mr. Amadu is a Ghanaian media personality and broadcast journalist on CTFM and CTTV conglomerate. He anchors news bulletins, including Eyewitness News on radio and City Newsroom on TV. He also hosts the weekly face-to-face personality-driven discussion show on CTTV. Mr. Amadu, thank you for joining us and welcome. A third panel member is a broadcast journalist, a seasoned one at that. He has worked closely with communities via the radio and television. Adolphus Maolo is the producer of Al Jazeera's English West and Central Africa Bureau here in Dakar, Senegal, and formerly a news editor at the West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. He is a family member. Let me also add that. Adolphus, good to see you and welcome. He's actually here in the studio with us.
Thank you very much, Imo.
Welcome, good to see you. Well, if you are ready, let's get straight to the business of the day. I would like to let us into some of a few housekeeping tips. Now, each panelist has at least 10 minutes to make his presentation, which will be followed by questions and answers. That session. So while the presentation is on any, if you have questions, please do note them. And when it's time, click on the hand icon button on your screen to notify that you would want to ask a question. Of course, we'll also be bringing on our partners who will also make some presentations in the course of the program. So without much ado, if we have Mr. Adams here, the head of programs at ASO Radio and Television Abuja, sir, you do have the floor. Mr. Mob, are you here with us? Okay, so while we wait for Mr. Momo to come on board, I would also ask if Mr. Amadu is here with us so he can go ahead and make his presentation. Mr. Amadu, are you here also?
Good morning. Imo, can I come in, please?
Okay, please go ahead, madam.
Yes, it seems we lost you. We lost most of your introduction in the beginning. Sound went off. Why not just have a retake? Because for on my part, it's only a little bit of Adolphus's introduction that we got. Please.
Our sincere apologies for that, and I'm sure our technicians behind the microphone are trying to ensure everything works fine here. Well, let me start with the my first introduction. Well, joining us from Abuja, and I'm sure if you can hear me now, can everybody hear me? Our participants online, please, if you can hear me, just wave at me. If you can hear me, just wave at me. Okay, I think our audio is fine. Father Lopez, can you hear me where you are there in the Gambia? If you can hear me, can you just wave at me so I can see you? Okay, I think you can hear me. All right, thank you so much for understanding, and we sincerely apologize for that technical hitch. You know how these things happen when it comes to technology. You really, you don't know all of it. It happens sometimes. But let me quickly again introduce our panel members. Let me start with the programs manager for ASO Radio in Abuja, Nigeria, Adams Momo. He is the head of program at that station, and he holds a master's degree in mass communication. His exceptional skills and expertise have led to his appointments as head of programs of ASO Radio Abuja since 2013. In this prestigious role, Adams leads a team of esteemed professionals towards creating compelling content for radio. He's a pioneer member of the Society of Nigerian Broadcasters.
The audio is off again, Imam.
Well, I do apologize. I understand that the audio is off again. Uh, but can you hear me now? Mr. Kwabo, can you hear me now? If you can hear me, please just wave at me. For our online participant, if you can hear me, please just wave at me. Okay, I think we may have to sort this out. Our technicians are working hard to ensure that this is rectified. Well, but can you hear me now, Mr. Kwabo? If you can hear me, please just wave at me. You still can hear me? Okay, we lost the audio. Please, if you can hear me, wave at me. Okay, all right. Well, so okay, so I will have to continue with Adolfo's here in the studio for our radio listeners. And when can you hear me now, Mr. Kalon? Can you hear me, Mr. Ahmed Kalon? Can you hear me, Mr. Sanda? Can you hear me? Okay, I would like to know if the audio is back for our online listeners and participants. Okay, so while we wait to sort that out, so that we don't keep our radio listeners, well, we'll take a quick break and we'll be back. Please stay with us.
Imo, there is no sound.
All right, welcome back. And we do sincerely apologize for that long break. We needed to get that to sort out the technical issues here so that just as you are listening to us on the radio, we would also love our participants and discussants online to be able to be fully part of the program. And of course, to our partner stations and our partner managers joining us, we sincerely apologize for that time loss. And we're better now, and I'm sure you can all hear me. Mr. James Kwabo in Liberia, can you hear me? Father Lopez there, can you hear me? In the Gambia, can you hear me? If you can hear me, please just wave at me. If you can hear me, just wave at me. Over there. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Father Lopez. Thank you so much there. Okay, so let me start again with the introduction of our panel members. And I understand that it was only that of Adolphus you got to listen to. Well, let me start with Mr. Adams Momo. He is the head of programs at ASO Radio and Television, Abuja, Nigeria. Mr. Momo is a pioneer staff of Abuja's first FM station in Abuja, ASO Radio 93.5 FM, and he holds a master's degree in mass communication. His exceptional skills and expertise have led to his appointment as head of programs of ASO Radio Abuja since 2013. Now, in this prestigious role, Adams leads a team of esteemed professionals towards creating compelling content for radio. He is a pioneer member of the Society of Nigerian Broadcasters. Mr. Momo, if you're there, welcome again. Well, also joining us on the panel, I saw him earlier while we're trying to sort out the sound issue, Umaru Sanda Amadu. Mr. Amadu is a Ghanaian media personality and broadcast journalist on CTFM and CTTV conglomerate. He anchors news bulletins, including Eyewitness News on radio and City Newsroom on television. He also hosts the weekly face-to-face personality-driven discussion show on CTTV. Mr. Amadu, thank you so much for your patience and welcome. And of course, our third panel member, who is a family and a friend of the house. He is a broadcast journalist and he has worked closely with communities via the radio and television. Adolphus Maolu is the producer of Al Jazeera's English West and Central Africa Bureau here in Dakar and formerly a news editor of the West Africa Democracy Radio English service. Adolphus, thank you so much for your patience and thank you for joining us again.
Thank you again, Imo, for the invitation. I'm really glad to be joining you and other journalists across the sub-region.
Indeed. Thank you so much. So now that we have, cleared everything on the way, let's go straight to our panelists. Mr. Momo, please, if you are ready with your presentation, can we have you come on so that we can proceed with the activity for this program? Mr. Momo, are you here with us? Okay, so let's see if Mr. Amadu is here. Mr. Amadu, are you here with us? Okay. Fortunately, he's in transit. Okay, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
I'll stop being in motion in the next 5 minutes if that's fine, so that I could have a formal conversation with you.
All right, very well. Thank you so much. That clearly understood. Let me come in-house here to Adolphus, who is with us here while we wait for Mr. Momo and Mr. Amadu to get set for their presentation. Mr. Maulo, thank you again for your patience and understanding how this technical things do work.
Well, journalism has taught us to be patient, right? Sometimes we are attending events and we have to wait hours and hours before they take off. So it's part of the job. A journalist is always a journalist.
Indeed. Radio, 100 years, a century of radio. For you as a journalist, how significant is this year?
Well, significant will be an understatement about the existence and significance of radio and the role that it continues to play in our communities and in promoting and enhancing democracy. We were born many decades ago and saw bridges that were built before us. Some of those bridges have collapsed, right? We've seen roads that have collapsed.
Certainly. And
But
rebuilt.
yes, but radio continues to exist, right? And there are instruments and elements that we were using before or our parents used before. They no longer exist, right? But we're talking about a century of an object, of a medium that has existed, that has impacted our communities in ways that you wouldn't imagine. And despite the chaos that the advent of internet has brought about, radio continues to be relevant because on the internet, on social media, there's so much chaos, right?
So much.
You can say it's regulated, sort of, but it's loosely regulated. Everyone is posting things, right, on the internet. Everyone is an editor. But on the contrary, the radio still remains a reference point because you have trained people who vet every information they send out. And so radio is important and will continue to remain relevant. 100 years to come, I still believe that radio will still have a role in helping us. And it's just common to see because you can see the internet being shut down. Every time there is an issue, the internet is shut down. Where do people go to access information? It's still the radio. That's one. The second aspect is internet is costly. You might get news and information on the via different online platforms easily and faster, but the point is they can easily be interrupted by the state. Whenever they feel that something is happening that they don't like, they can easily just shut it down. And we've seen that happen repeatedly. While we are happy that the internet is helping us to access information in ways that we never did before, we also have challenges. That's one aspect of it. While radio is going to continue to be important, especially in poor countries, the cost of internet is very high. And so it's not everyone who's going to be able to be consistently connected, to be able to consume news and information delivered via internet platforms. So radio remains the cheaper and most reliable means of accessing information. So in decades to come, or even in a century to come, it is still going to remain with us. Beyond that, I spoke earlier about the chaos in the social media space. When people want when they want an ease of mind, especially in accessing information, they rely strictly again on radio. So it is the rallying point. It is the rallying point. It is this single object, this single space that rallies all of us to dialogue, to review how our societies are functioning, right? And to propose ways for us to move forward. But here is what I like to say as we celebrate World Radio Day, or as we celebrate this year, marking a century of the existence of radio. We have to protect radio and the space that it has provided. We have to keep it quiet because there are creeping threats, right, in this space. And that has to do with ownership of radio stations. Now, we're saying politics is rearing its head in this media sector. And you're seeing politicians trying to own radio stations. And the question fundamentally becomes, if politicians own radio stations, the question will be, in whose interest would these stations be operating? Would it be the interest of the funders, the creators of these stations, or like the traditional media is considered to be, public service? Would they continue to play that role as public service providers? That's where the issue is. And how we resolve that to make the radio stay relevant to people is something I think we need to be thinking about. That's just one aspect of it. I spoke a lot about the chaos on the internet. Mind you, the internet has also brought enormous opportunities for us. Now we're broadcasting here on the radio, but you still have the means to stream live so that audiences far and near who are not connected to the radio are still able to listen to what we are saying here in the studio. So that's how important the internet has become. But how we exploit it to the benefit of society is what we need to contemplate on and think about more as we lay out policies to guide our engagements.
Indeed. Well, just for you to round off so that we can have Mr. Amadu who is ready. Looking at the recent trends, the political upheaval in Senegal here where you are, how do you think radio has been able to manage that situation between the friction we've seen from the presidency to the population and even with the CSOs and the stakeholders?
Well, Imo, I'd like to remind you about the fact that the internet was shut down because the government had wanted to control the spread or the supposed spread of fake information. Because when there's riot, when there is political chaos, people tend to manipulate the situation sometimes to misinform people who really do not have the means to double check and cross check information that they receive. As a journalist, you might receive information from a source and have the means to double check with a second source to authenticate if the information that you've received is really authentic, right? But it's not everyone who's going to have the time or have the means and skill to be able to double check information that you've received. So it is in instances like this that the government, or pretext like this, that the government will use to shut down the internet. But when that happens, you see people will turn to the radio for news and information. And that's what happened. And the radio never disappoints. It never fails because we can talk about little gaps in what happens in this media ecosystem, but it remains largely regulated. Journalists are governed and they still uphold ethical standards, and which is why it's become the reference point. It's not just a reference point because people want to say the radio is a reference point. They know that people who sit behind the microphones to propagate news and information daily, to inform them, these are people, these are trained people in the first place, right? They are governed by ethics. So whatever they send out there has to pass through several hands to make sure that they are not just loosely sending out information. So coming back to Senegal, what happened is that when the internet was shut down, the radio continued to consistently preach messages of peace, right? And continue to question in order to bring clarity to what was happening. What decision has been taken? Why was the decision taken? Who has taken the decision? What has this decision cost, right? And how do we get out of this stalemate? So radio brings clarity where there is chaos.
Indeed. Well, on that point, I will want to thank you, Dolphus Maolo, for your presentation. And, well, we still have you here, so you will be taking questions from our participants and, of course, our colleagues joining us. So let's go straight to Ghana and join Umaru Sanda Amadu, who is going to give us his presentation. Mr. Amadu, if you're ready, please take the floor.
Thank you so much. Good morning to everyone from Accra. It's a bright morning. We've witnessed our first rain 3 days ago, and we're anticipating more rains coming up this year. It is, I'm hearing myself, the echo. I don't know what you can do about that. It's a bit disruptive. But thank you so much. It's an honor that I'm joining this esteemed panel to have this conversation this morning. Radio for me is a part of my life. I mean, just a brief background about my relationship with radio. I grew up as a cowboy or a headsman. I don't know how you call it in your various countries, but because I'm from the Fulani or Pale ethnic group, cattle rearing is usually our kind of profession. So down here in Ghana, it is what my parents do. It's what my father did. And so when I grew up on the farm herding cattle. And every dawn, I listened to my father and his friends tune into the BBC and listen to the Radio Hausa service. And then when I started growing up, there was a radio in the house. I would be listening to the MW or the SW and later the FM. At the time, there weren't many FM stations in Ghana. We only had the state broadcaster. Then I managed to procure a small radio set, which I would hold with me every time in the bush when I was with my cattle, listening to the radio all the time. BBC, the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, even some stations on the shortwave and NW, medium wave, and all of those things. It's something that intrigued me. I always wondered how come these people were speaking in this little box and were making so much impact. And fast forward, I have become a journalist, and I am at the other side now. I'm no more a listener, but now I'm the one who is producing what is being listened to. And I realize how significant radio has been for me. Radio is about the only medium you can travel with everywhere you are. So if you are a commercial bus driver, you have the radio in the car with you, you are listening. If you're an office worker, you sit in the car, the radio is on with you. If you are a farmer, a crop farmer, and what I saw in my village, people would take the big radio set to the farm and put it on a tree where they will be listening to while they are weeding in the farm. And in my instance, as a cowboy, I would hold my radio set alongside my stick and my water bottle into the bush with the animals. And this was a daily routine. And you could even hold your radio. You could even toilet excuse my peas. Or it has even made it a bigger thing. So there's a Walkman where you could. It has even made it and repart that I can never estimate. In Ghana, we have had so many cool guitars, so many and forgive me, I mean, in Ghana, whenever the issue of whenever it has happened in the past, the announcement of the coup has to be done on the radio. If you didn't get your coup data announced on radio, you have not succeeded. So there was always a strategy in Ghana that when you go to take over the state house or the house of the president or the seat of the president, there must be a detachment of soldiers who go to the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation and capture that. And when they announce on the radio, then that coup is successful. Until you announce on the radio, you are not successful. And I'm not celebrating coups. I'm just telling you how important radio has been for us in Ghana over the decades. To the extent that they use the radio to announce curfews, they use the radio to announce ministers who are wanted or ex-ministers who are needed. And if your name was mentioned on the radio at 6 p.m. at the time, it meant that you really have done something big and you have to either run away from the country or go and report yourself and get detained. Fast forward, in the early 2000s or middle 90s and early 2000s, radio started opening up. And today we have over 500 radio stations in Ghana. And I happen to be working with one of the best, if not the best of them. And for me, the good thing is that radio is a platform that gives you access to the very mighty and to the very weak. We hold an even balance between the two. As a radio person behind the microphones in Accra, I represent the views of someone in the Bolga area, which is in the Upper East region of Ghana. I represent the government of Ghana in communicating what the government wants to communicate to the people. And I also represent the people of Ghana in communicating to the government what they need. And so radio serves that fine balance. Now, the issue has been discussed in the studio by my colleague about what will happen to media in the next 100 years. And for that matter, radio. I think we have succeeded over the past 100 years, and we can only even succeed more. That's what I foresee. However, there are challenges and not threats. Today, how many people really listen to the radio? With the advent of podcasts and YouTube and all these streaming channels, we are seeing more people switching. There's television, but in Africa, television, I still see the penetration to be a bit problematic because you require electricity, full constant supply of electricity to watch a television set. That is still a difficulty. Again, TV, you may need to sit behind the set to actually know what's happening. Radio, you don't need to be looking at the screen to know what is happening. So there's one challenge about new media coming up where there's YouTube, there's all these streaming services that are coming up. what we should start doing as radio practitioners is to know that there are new media platforms that have come up. Let us adjust to them. Let's innovate or we die. So how do we innovate? West Africa Democracy Radio is doing this program this morning. I am not able to listen to 94.3. I think that's your frequency in Dakar, in Ghana. However, you are using the internet to broadcast. So I have been listening to your show all morning. And to be honest with you, I think you should also have some other frequency modulation, some frequencies in Ghana and other stations that will relay your program. Well, if you're West Africa Democracy Radio, we should also be able to tune into you here and listen in Benin and in Burkina Faso and all those countries. So try and work on that. It's just by way of information and request to you. However, I'm listening to you online, so you have made yourself accessible to me. Again, as media persons, we should know that we have been given the professional training. Those we see using gadgets and all those devices to broadcast, they are not professionals. They may not have gone to school of communication or school of journalism. They may not have any ethics binding them or professionalism binding them. We do. Let the viewers know that we are the best place for them to come for news and confirmation. If they see anything or listen to anything on a podcast or on a YouTube platform somewhere, they should say, I don't think this is true. Let me tune to West Africa Democracy Radio and see if it is true. Or let me tune to CTFM and see if it is true. So we have now become the confirmers of the facts of the news and not necessarily the breakers of the news as it used to be in the past. So there's a saying in my language that when the music changes, the dance ought to change. I think the music has changed. We ought to change our dance as well. Otherwise, we'll be left behind thinking that we are unbreakable as a media platform, but we'll soon realize that we actually are breakable. So we have to work and change with the times and seasons as they change. That's what I would say by way of opening comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amadou, for your presentation. Truly, we appreciate you having to pack by the road to make that presentation. Mr. Momo, if you are ready, please do take the floor before we open up for questions from our participants and other discussions from our partner stations. Mr. Momo, if you're here, please take the floor. Mr. Momo, are you here? Okay, so while we wait for Mr. Momo, I think we'll go straight to taking some of your questions. And already we do have some questions trickling in. I would like to start with you, Adolphus, here. Now, we do have a question on the theme, which is using radio to strengthen democracy. But how can we do that in this era and time, knowing that the dynamics have changed?
We are pretty much still doing that. Radio, it's not just about the journalists who go and collect information and inform people. Radio is more about bringing communities together to discuss common and shared issues confronting them. And we still continue to do that. The radio continues to do that. Why, in fact, are we here today? The essence of our being here, or of our participation in this program today, is to look at the problems or the challenges confronting the media ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
And so this is one way the radio enhances democracy, because democracy is all about representation and it's all about governance. And how are we represented? How are we able to govern? It's by coming together, discussing, identifying, and trying to solve our common and shared problems. So this is how radio is contributing to democracy and sustaining democracy. It's still like the fire heart in the village that brings the elders and the children together, where stories are told about their great-grandfathers, about their tribes, right? So that's the role that radio continues to play, and that's how it is helping us. When we talk about fighting common diseases in our communities, when we talk about fighting dictatorships in our communities, it is the radio that rallies us together, because people living in the rural areas that have no access, for example, to pipe-bomb water, or who are feeling the pinch of insecurity, they run to the radio station to tell journalists that we've, for example, elected this government to protect us, to provide security, but we continue to be terrorized by bandits. Example of that, right? So, and then the journalists will speak to them, hear their concerns, and go to the national security minister, for example, or maybe speak to the relevant authorities and say, we've been to this village, or we've entertained people from this village, and this is what they say. What are you doing about it, right? It's about playing the role as a mediator. That's what we do, essentially as journalists. And this is the role that the radio facilitates. We hear from both sides. You are supposed to be leading these people. You're supposed to be providing health services for them. You're supposed to be securing them. But they say you're not doing it. Why? And then the government tells you these are the issues that we're having, right?
Let me hold your thought there, Adolphus, because I'm sure we're going to be getting questions. Please, if you do have questions to all of our participants, kindly click on the hand icon on your screen so we can connect you to our audio and take your question. Well, I do have a question for Mr. Amadu there, and so just to also inform him that we do have partner radios in Ghana, and that they do relay our programs, they do relay our news. Maybe you just need to find time and tune in, and then you can be part of it. We do have partner stations across West Africa. You just need to maybe the right time for you to just listen to our programs. So, but thank you for that suggestions, and we are strengthening those partnership and collaborations with partner stations across the sub-region. Well, if we have a questions? I'm seeing Yax Aruwa's hand up. Mr. Yax, are you there? Yax Aruwa's hand up. Mr. Yax, are you there? Okay. While we wait for Mr. Yax to put his audio together, we would like to also open the floor, and while we also take in more questions, I'll be asking Mr. Amadu a question, but I also need to throw this question at our partners joining us across the sub-region. Let me also thank all of them. Mr. James Papikwaba, I see you there in Liberia. I see Papa Morris. I see Hassan Yamba. I see all of you. Thank you so much, Mr. Matthew. Thank you so much, Pod FM. Mr. Kolos Mohammed, I see you all. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, Father from Veritas Radio, I see you. Thanks so much for joining us on this program. Let me invite our partner stations now to also make a few points in this discussion. First, Mr. Kwabo Jr., if you are ready, please open your mic and tell us how it's been as a community radio in the last 100 years, coming in to see the existence of radio, and what are the roles that you have been able to play in your community there in Lofa County, Liberia. Your community there in Lofa County, Liberia. Your community there in Lofa County, Liberia.
Well, thank you, Emma. Thanks, Emma, for the family, the family from age 10 to this age of my life. That's around 24 years of my age in the radio sector. Liberia, we graduated from the stage of putting transmitters in the air to now putting transmitters in the building, to now from the amateurs level, to having a modernized system. But interesting has evolved over the time in Liberia, as so the country I'm getting a feedback from you.
Mr. Kwabo, please, if you can, Mr. Kwabo, if you can put off your video so we can have a clearer audio. Please put off your video so we can have a clearer audio. The network is being distorted. Please put off your clearer audio. The network is being distorted.
Okay, so is it okay now?
The network is
It's okay now. So is it okay now?
Yes, it's better now.
We now see the proliferation of radio stations in Liberia from starting. We have a steady conductor by Internews Liberia with pay for airtime services. We gave her 1 hour free of charge for all of the political expiries and candidates so that they come to the public and tell the public what they are doing. Right now, we are collaborating with the access of information on local governance. So it's a whole new, phenomena and approaches to disseminating information. So I'm here. I'm happy for the invite and look forward to a lot more to share with you. Reference to the work we are doing in the rural community radio sector, reference to innovation, reference to capacity building and support for the community and disseminating information. Thank you.
Indeed, thank you very much, Mr. James Pablo Kwabo Jr. there. He is the station manager for Alternative Youth Radio there in Lover County, Liberia. Thank you so much. And he's been a very strong partner of WADR. Well, I'd like to go to Mr. Amado if he is still online too. Ask him one or two questions. Mr. Amado, are you there? Yes. I see.
Here.
I see you. Well, kindly share with us your thoughts on how you feel radio has been able to create that platform. I mean, Adolphus did mention that we're supposed to be that medium and facilitate discussions between the government and those that are governed. Have we been able to fit into that role properly in the last century?
I think we have, and we have even done even better because what is the main medium of communication between government and the governed? It has always been radio, and radio has come to solve that problem. Otherwise, If governments wants to talk to the citizens, they would have to go through communities and do community mass meetings, if you like, or rallies. But if they put their messages on the radio, and mind you, the radio penetrates every community, every household, and every room, it has been an effective way. The reverse is that we as media are again able to go to the villages, the rural communities, and bring the stories that are not out there. And we tell that using the adjectives and all the tools that are available for us through radio, documentaries, news, and all of those things. I think we have told that story so well. And even though we may have our own challenges as practitioners, and some of our broadcasters may be engaging in politics or some other ethnocentrism and all of those things, generally, I think we have been a perfect conveyor belt of government communication to the mass and the reverse of the community complaints and issues to the government. I think we've done that a perfect job.
Sandra, thank you so much for that response. But more questions will be coming to you. Well, let me go to the Gambia and talk to Father Peter Lopez. He is with the Veritas Radio there. Father Lopez, please, see if you're here, please put on your microphone and tell us about the role of radio there in the Gambia in driving the change from a dictatorship to the present day democratic government in the Gambia.
Good morning to all of you, and thank you so much, Imo, for this opportunity. And I want to go back to what Umaru Sandu talked about earlier on, about radio being what we call a secondary medium that you can carry anywhere that you are. You know, when people are in their radios or they're in the farm, you cannot easily do that with other mediums. For example, someone has earlier alluded to internet, which is very expensive to most of us here in this part of the world in Africa. Over the years, especially during the dictatorship, I think radio played a pivotal role in helping so many people know what's happening in the Gambia. Some of you will recall 22 years of dictatorship in this country and how radio has helped in making sure that those who were in government were taken to book. A lot of people were able to know what was going on thanks to radio. I mean, in the rural communities, people may not have electricity to watch television. They can easily get a battery to listen to radio. So radio remains relevant. Radio is a preferred medium, and so many people up till today will prefer to listen to radio than to watch television. So for me, radio has been a medium that is so pivotal in the development of most of our democracies.
Father Lopez, thank you so much there for your contribution. Well, we'll be coming to you again. Well, let me cross over now to Nigeria. I'm seeing some of our partners joining us from there. Specifically, let me talk to Mr. Kalon. Mr. Kalon, thank you again for joining us and for being with us since we started this program. Well, how is it like in your community over there? The government interference, how are you able to manage those interference when they come, especially during election years?
Yeah, I have not been able to identify a concerned genuine government interference into the operations of the radios in Sierra Leone, except where we might be thinking of the regulatory body, which is the IMC, and that has to do with a regulation of having to register and you have to pay license fee annually. I worked for the state radio for about 15 years before I left to establish the Eastern Community Radio as a regional community radio in 2005. And I have since served as a station manager until the time I established the branches in all the 3 districts of the region, thereby making me to be the general station manager. But what I have experienced in the past is that of positioning. You know, we have the state radio, which is generally perceived as the mouthpiece of the party, the political party in power. We have the commercial radio, which generally prioritizes money or profit. And we have the community radio, which is now my own background because I came from the government, the state-owned radio, and for the past 19 years, community radio manager. What we do normally is to position yourself. The ownership of the radio is important. The content management is important. But all these are geared towards enhancing what we call acceptability and trust. If the people trust you, they know this is our own radio, and they speak with one voice, that radio will be a tool for development and peace. And so what we have done or achieved as radio in Sierra Leone, community radio station, generally through the community radio network, is the provision of the availability of content management that is people's oriented. And when you do that, people often claim the ownership of the radio and they listen to the radio. If we are talking about content and the reach of radio, then that one is not enough to actually show the power of the radio. Otherwise, the BBC and the VOA wouldn't go through community radio station to relay their programs because each and every radio has its
Alon, I think we lost you there. Mr. Callon, thank you so much for your thoughts there. We're sorry for the network issue, but if you can, please do connect back. Amado, let me come to you. Um, Tell us about these difficulties that you have encountered or radio in Ghana, have encountered, especially when they denounce acts of bad governance and political issues.
Well, I must say that media in Ghana is freer than many countries in Africa. I do know that because I have journalist friends across the continent, and I do know the struggles some people really go through. We have our own challenges, but we've had more challenges when we're under military rule. But Ghana has been a democratic country since 1992 for 30 years now. 32 years, actually, we've had a stable democracy, and we have seen the repeal of the criminal libel law, so that in Ghana, if you did something on the radio and you slandered someone, they will not take you to the police station, but rather to the National Media Commission or the court, where they will sue you in a formal suit and deal with you. That notwithstanding, there are still issues that come up where you're trying to do your job and someone in government thinks that, no, this guy, what he's doing is affecting us. There are several ways they can come after you. They would come after you through a commercial means where they decide to deny you funding. And I say funding in reference to advertising, because as broadcast media, we survive on advertising. So they may decide that they will not give you advertising. Now, if the private sector is not supporting with advertisements, then you are really ruined. So that's one way. There are physical attacks that happen, and that one, it happens every now and then. A lot of the times, we have a very powerful journalism association, the Ghana Journalists Association. We have the Media Foundation for West Africa, which is actually headquarters or originating from Ghana. And we have a number of other journalist associations. They will usually come and support whoever has been affected. One tool we have been using lately is to boycott politicians who mastermind and support the beating up of journalists, which is something we have been seeing lately. So the position, including which has been endorsed by the Journalists Association, is that if you're a politician and you attack a journalist, you will be given a blackout. We will not broadcast anything about you again. Some people have described it as very harsh, but we've decided if you want to attack us, then we have to also counter you by boycotting you. So that is one way. I would say that we don't see a lot of attacks on media as we see in other countries, but our association has been very vibrant. And even media owners, a lot of them being private media owners, have been very supportive. Another problem with radio practice here, a number of radio stations are owned by politicians, and I think someone alluded to that point earlier in the discussion. Now, if the politician owns the station, he has an agenda and he wants to push that agenda. There are people who own the station who are businessmen. For instance, there's someone who owns a big alcohol manufacturing company in Ghana, and he owns a radio station. So he has an agenda and he's pushing that subtly. They may provide a lot of content when there's need for it, but ultimately there's something beneath, which is a grand agenda to push either a political party or an ethnic group agenda. Just 2 days ago, actually 3 days ago, the National Communications Authority had to shut down 4 radio stations in Ghana's Upper East region. There's a town there called Boko where there's been a conflict for more than 3 years. Many people have died. Apparently, these radio stations were set up by their owners to promote anti-ethnic agenda. So they are pushing one ethnic group agenda against another, and that is fueling the conflict. So National Security and National Communications Authority had to go in there and shut those radio stations down. So we have that. The agenda setting theory that we've studied in schools is generally supposed to be for positive purposes, but many people, media owners especially, are using it for their own parochial interests, and that would be one of the key challenges that I identify here.
Blacklisting the politicians. We see that in Ghana. Well, I will want to thank Dr. Vivian Kumba for joining us and also take his opinion, what she thinks about radio and how has radio been able to help in our profession as a medical person. Dr. Vivian, if you can hear us, please open up your mic and let's hear you talk to us.
Okay, good morning to you all. And it's been good to sit here and listen to journalists talking. I'm not a journalist, obviously, but I work with Father Peter Lopez on Radio Veritas in the Gambia, providing a health hour a week, a health talk an hour a week for the radio. And I must say that the radio is an important tool. You know, all what I've heard you all talk about here is correct in the sense that the radio. Okay, let me start my video. I put the video off for the quality because sometimes when the video is on, the quality is disturbing. But the radio is an important tool. Even in the health program we do, we get feedback. You know, just being able to give people information and guidelines on how to be healthy and prevent diseases and what to do when you don't feel well and all that. It's been very useful. We wouldn't be able to even do that on TV for the simple fact that, like you have all said, not everybody has a TV set in their home. Not every little village has electricity to be able to run a television. And usually with the radio, especially our FM radios, they go deep into the community. And I think it's a very big plus for the radio. And whatever we do and whatever we can do to keep radios on, let's not relent the effort, because this radio is giving people information and empowering them in very many ways. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Dr. Vivian, for joining us. And it's good to know that, as a medical person, you're using our medium to reach out to millions that tune into Veritas Radio for the program. Thank you so much for your participation. We'd also like to take a comment from Pa Louis Tomasi. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. If you can hear me, please put on your microphone and share with us your experience as a seasoned journalist. Tell us how you see radio 100 years after now and all that radio has played, the role it has played, and what you see in the future.
Good morning. You okay? I heard you say you are a project writer.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. I'm a radio manager. A radio manager.
Okay, Paliwi. Okay. All right. So while we wait for him to join us, I would like to go straight to Tox Morgan in Plateau State, Nigeria. We know Plateau is a hotbed for ethnic crisis. Well, tell us, how has the radio there been able to manage these crises, especially what we've seen in the last couple of months?
All right. Good morning from here. Oh, it's afternoon here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
All right. All right. Good morning once again. Plateau. Yeah, like you said, it's a hotbed of crisis here in Nigeria. Everyone knows about that. And the media has been able to help us, calm situations here, especially with what we see on the social media. Someone did talk about social media earlier on, and he did mention that information fly around social media, but the only place you get trusted information is radio. Here we get uh, even SOS. They reach out to us on radio. Some people get to talk on radio and explain the situation. So what we do here, or how we use the radio here, is in terms of projecting peace messages, and also some of the content that we have. And sometimes we even try as much as bringing uh, let me use supposed warring parties, because in most cases we hear that the assailants are unknown. So it's very difficult to say you're bringing this person from this side and this person from the other side. But what it does is, after many of these attacks happen, the closest, or the perceived enemy is the one who is being pointed at. And before you know, the situation begins to degenerate. So what we do here, and how we use radio here to control the situation, is we try to bring all parties that are divided across lines, whether religious or tribal or even political lines, to sit together and talk. Now, once people begin to hear these persons talking on radio and sharing their own perspective of how we can control the crisis, it has a way of changing the mindset of those who are out there thinking they want to defend themselves, or in under the notion that they are fighting for, let's say, God or anything. So basically, we have done a lot. I remember working with the Plateau Peace Building Agency. We had jingles here that were recorded in different dialects. The native dialects here different. We are over 54 here on the plateau, and apart from other Nigerians who are also residents here. So we made sure that we aggregate all these messages in different languages and make sure that the people listen to them. By so doing, you discover that those who are in the habit of reprisal, because the gunmen are unknown, and the reprisal are usually done on innocent persons. Once they listen to radio and get this information, they know this information is genuine and is true, because the people talking there, are real. But on the social media, you may just get an information from an AI, someone who is not even existing, and if you act upon it, he doesn't. The sender doesn't exist where you are, but you picking it from the social media, it messes the entire situation. So radio is the most trusted platform around here. I can recall my morning show here is one that many people listen to. If they hear anything, they call in the morning, talk, Morgan, we heard this. Is it true? And sometimes I will say, okay, it is not true. I have gotten the same information, done my verification, and I have, you know, gotten the fact that it's not true. Sometimes I put a call directly to government officials or even the parties involved. Even the parties involved. So they come live on air. They come live on air and they dispel or affirm whatever information is out there. So you see, the radio platform is a very, very serious tool. It's been used politically, it's been used for business and other things. Let me stop here, but that's what we've been able to do here that has controlled the situation largely.
Did. Thank you so much, Mr. Talk Morgan of KTFM in Jos Plateau State, Nigeria. Well, we do have some comment here, and this one is from Louis Tomasi, and he says, it is actually true that media ownership, especially radio, have vested interests, mainly politics. However, as professional journalists, we should also ensure that we stay focused and not allow ourselves to be used by politicians to castigate other political opponents. We must broadcast in the public interest, irrespective of what the owners think that we should do. Thank you so much for your comment. And he says, he went further to say that we must be able to develop mechanisms as professionals to ensure that politicians should not be allowed to dictate what we broadcast. As professional journalists, we must set the agenda. Let me go to Liberia, Mr. Kwabo Jr. I wanted to ask you this before. I don't know if he's back online. As is it there? As a media owner, I think he's not here. Kwabo Jr., is he here? Okay. Okay, so let me go to Mr. Hassan Koroma there. Mr. Koroma, thank you so much for joining us. You've heard this comment that we as professionals must be able to set the agenda. Okay, Kwabo Jr. is back. Mr. James, can you hear me, please? Mr. James, can you hear me, please? Mr. James, can you hear me, please?
Yeah, I'm getting you.
Able to manage influence from politicians, especially during your last election, because we are getting this comment that we must continue to set the agenda and be as professional as possible.
The question, you keeping breaking? Yeah. But if I got the last part, you're more concerned about how do we stay out of the influence of political ownership and so. Is that what you mean? Hello, Imo.
Yes.
Okay, so the issue is you need to remain firm on your editorial policy. That's one thing, because every institution has its own unique editorial policy. Beyond me initiating an idea to have a youth radio station for my community, I also manage the day-to-day affairs of the entity. So what that provides me is a space to be able to guard the editorial judgment of the institution, because for me, professionally, I am a journalist. Judging back from my not only 24 years of practical experiences, but professionally, I have a degree in communication with emphasis in broadcasting. So I blending it with my master in public sector administration. So it tells you how I am able to work with my team to balance the public interest when it comes to communication for development with that of looking at the social enterprise component. Because what has happened in the community radio sector right now, in order to protect your editorial policy, you need to diversify your funding sources. So that's one innovation that we have brought. So we are now looking in the area of sustainability, because what is happening in Liberia is no secret. Maybe in other countries, it could be different. Most of the money that comes in for airtime services and so the community members themselves may not be able to fund the operation, but they are passionate and support it in one way or the other. But bulk of those who pay for airtime services and programs during election time are politicians. There is a temptation of resisting what they bring as an, let's say, as payment for airtime and how you run your institution. So what we did over the time was to develop a contract to say, look, here much that you are paying your money for the airtime services, but we have editorial policy that one you must go by. So you can come and sit on our platform to instigate violence. You must come to preach your message. So it's absolutely out of political ownership, because this is something that that the young people of my community came together to say, you know what, we need to have a voice. So we decided to build this entity. So it may be different because when Internews even did the survey, they realized that there was diverse ownership of radio stations. So what I think needs to be done, uh, while you remain independent, is also important to get involved in social enterprise, and that's one major idea we are trying to send out to all of the community radio stations. Like, for instance, I can tell anyone, right? In order to protect our editorial policy, right now we're opening our stationery shop as as a diverse means of bringing in revenue to, because once you get money to run your activities and pay your staff, that is going to work. Now we're into agriculture. Now we're into preparing for the guest house construction. So we had to find a way outside of the box, because traditionally we've been depending on announcements, radio, jingles, and things to sustain your operation. But this time it has to do with social enterprise into the community radio sector. Like that, you stay off interferences, because if I got money to run my entity, no one is coming to detect to change my editorial policy, because you need to it needs to fit in what you want. So I think there has been, even in Liberia, there are too many let's say radio stations that are
All
owned by
right.
politicians or those with vested political interests.
Indeed, Mr. James Pablo Jr., thank you so much for your opinion. Well, we do have a message from Fidelis Mensa Dunia, and he is writing us from Nenzit Community Radio, Faraman, Kaduna, Nigeria. And it says that the role of radio in strengthening democracy in West Africa cannot be overemphasized. And he says radio has been one of the cheapest and reliable means of getting information. And he said over time, radio has been the means where the aged, the poor, women and children, people living with disabilities get information they want, including democracy. And he says in Nigeria, after every election, the masses are tuned into the radio for updates about the results. And he said, since democracy is freedom, they listen to their radio set without any problem. Our phones and cars have radio, and it is easy and movable, so they get every information they want. So the role of radio in strengthening democracy cannot be overemphasized. Thank you so much, Fidelis Dunia from Nenzit Community Radio, Faraman, Kaduna, in Nigeria, for your comment. It is well received. And of course, we do, as we round off this conversation, I know Mr. Hassan Koroma, you're back on. Thank you so much for joining us. And quickly, how is it like in your community, staying on focus, delivering the public service which the radio was created for?
Yeah, it's very much great. I'm happy to be with you. And as he said, the role of the radio in strengthening the democracy is very much great. And with regards to our community radio, especially, it came about immediately after the war, because they found out there is a gap between the public radio, which is the government radio station, which is the state radio, and the community radio. And for now, our own radio, especially community radio, give voices to the voiceless, and also creating a platform for people participation to make informed decisions, taking our leaders accountable, giving voice to deprived communities. For instance, when there are elections, people find it very difficult to know exactly what's happening. We give airtime to the electoral body to make sure that we educate the people to make informed decisions. And radio, especially community radio, create that platform as well. And the only thing is that there are a lot of challenges with radio, especially with community radio, as I heard from my colleagues. This for Sierra Leone is a new phenomenon, because community radio came in immediately after the war in 2002. So setting up the radio, people supporting it, there is people supporting community radio. But it came a time the way the radios are being operating, those areas are deprived communities. So sometimes I find it's very difficult in terms of sustainability. But in strengthening democracy, radio play a very crucial role towards that. Because even the time of during the minutes after the war, we use radio to give messages to displaced people where they are, where our parents are, who is dead, who is alive, the location. We call it family link. We use voice recording. We send messages to various communities that, for example, I am Hassan. I want to inform my family that I am not dead. I located at, you show your location. So please, if you hear me, this is Hassan who is alive. So this is how radio have been playing a very crucial role in terms of strengthening democracy, in terms of people participation in governance.
But thank you so much for your contribution. Well, Papa Morris has been waiting online to give his opinion. Mr. Morris, please go ahead. Mr. Talks, can you please mute your microphone?
Okay, thank you. Can you get me now?
Please go ahead, Mr. Morris.
Okay. Thank you so much for according me this opportunity. I'm extremely glad that I can join my colleagues from other parts of West Africa to also learn from them in the discussion. And I think it's a very great experience, considering the fact that people are speaking from their regions, telling us exactly what's happening there with respect to how we can strengthen our democratic system in West Africa. You know, radio is known as the king of Africa. The king. Why do we call it the king of Africa? It is because studies show that between 60 to 80% of the around 1.4 billion people in Africa use, I'm talking about between 60 to 80% use radio as a major source of information. Radio is extremely trusted by Africans, West Africa being a part of it. And so, in our community, where we are in Liberia specifically, like my colleague Kwabo stated, um, we all have been in the business for so long, trying to strengthen our radio stations to ensure that will help make the necessary contribution to the vibrancy of our democracy. And so, here in Liberia, the radio stations have been so much supportive first in bringing peace. You know, our country went to war and it was quite disastrous. And so the radio also played a significant role in ensuring the return of peace to Liberia.
Yes.
And so when peace returned to Liberia, radio, especially the community radio station in 2003, became extremely popular. It became extremely popular. And so we have been making our contribution and we continue to make contribution. I'm hearing noise in the background. I'm not getting hello.
Please go ahead. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. So I was talking about how the radio has helped in bringing peace to Liberia. And so after the war, again, the radio stations in Liberia continue to ensure that the rule of law is adhered to. The radio stations continue to ensure that policymakers are making the right decisions for the survivability of the nation. And so at the community level, I talk about the community radio stations. Um, Everyone in the different communities in our country depends on the different community radio station. Why it is true that you have the state radio and other bigger institutions. I also work for the state radio as correspondent in Central Liberia. And so bulk of the people in Central Liberia look up to the different community radio stations because they see themselves in the news, they see themselves in the radio stations. So the community radio stations are able to hold local leaders accountable to the community dwellers. And so you find out because of the accessibility of community radio stations, people are able to understand what's happening in their communities. They are able to hold their leaders, to account for whatever they need to account for. They are able to make essential decision for their own well-being, especially during electoral periods. So you see, in my region, for example, Central Liberia, specifically Bong, there were a lot of lawmakers who were voted out of parliament because the people thought that these people were not living up to the promises made during the previous election. And radio was always there to sensitize the community. And that's the essence of the radio, setting the stage for strengthening democracy, setting the stage for ensuring that there is accountability, that there is respect for the rule of law.
Thank you so much, Papa Morris, for your contribution. And let me go straight because of time. Quickly go to the Gambia and listen to one of our partners. Don't worry, Mr. Kalon, I will give you the floor just for you. But let me talk to Usman Maronga, our partner in North Bank region in the Gambia, Newmi FM. Talk to us, Mr. Marong.
Yes, a very good morning to yours, wonderful audience who are currently logging with us on this wonderful session, I will call it. Glad be upon me to be part of this important discussion. You know, media, particularly radio, is something that is very crucial. Crucial in the sense is that for us at Nyomi FM, you know, this is not just to blow my own trumpet, but then the community at that end definitely entrusted us. And we also believe that we are doing our best or our quota towards national development. You go to my region, let's say Bara and the surrounding satellite villages of SL, you know, Mayamba, Kanuma, just to list a few. You know, you gave them information, they bought you. All that they will tell you is that, well, we haven't heard it from Nyomi FM. We will only trust the source or the peddler should we have heard it from Nyomi FM. So to us, that's a plus. And we are doing a lot at the radio, despite the fact that the earning is not that exorbitant. The earning aspect of radio, we all know, is very difficult. Moreover, in the Gambia. But then this is not stopping us from being on newsstand. We are on newsstand on daily basis from Monday to Sunday, I can tell you. And our partner radio station, WADR, also their news is very impactful to the radio and to the listeners. Often at time, even when I'm late to air their audios or the news, callers will start calling. Maron, what is the problem? We are listening. Where is there any WADR news today? So I'll just tell them, okay, just a moment, you know, maybe light is off. So we are switching to our power generator, but very soon, you know, you will get WADR news. And, you know, when it is time, we just air the news. And radio, like I said, is very crucial. And for us, our kind of journalism or broadcast is the product of our society. What is the essence of journalism or radio broadcast if it doesn't benefit society? So this is all that I have to say. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to have one or two things to say. Thank you so much.
Indeed, thank you so much, Usman Marong. He is the station manager for Newmi FM, one of our partner stations in the Gambia. Well, we also have another partner from the Gambia, Hot FM. They have also been a long-standing partner of the radio. Well, let's hear you share your experience with us, Madam Betha, if you are there. Open your mic. Hot FM.
Hot FM, Hot FM, Hot FM.
Okay, so while we wait for them to put on their microphone, I would like to bring on board Pa Luis Tomasi, who is here in person, who is here. His video is up now, actually. So just a few words from you, looking at the political situation here in Senegal and how you think radio has been able to be in between, give the people the right information, and also not take words from the politicians who may want to, detect how radio operates or whatever news that is disseminated?
Thank you very much, Imo, and thanks to all the people who are listening or who are participating in this very, very important meeting. Basically, politicians have no role in this. I think the echo is from you. Hello, hello, hello.
Go ahead, son. 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 You know how this technology works. Sometimes you hold it here and it comes out at the other end. Please go ahead, sir. 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 Go a Seems to be sustained. Patamasa, please. We're sorry about that. Please proceed. Please proceed. 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 Please go ahead. Sir. I think we can hear you. Please go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just rush down to some quick perspectives. Basically, that radio as a medium of mass communication enforces quality journalism. Now, the challenge is that, like some of us have said, radio ownership, especially in Africa, needs to be revisited. Like most people said, politicians and businessmen who have no interest in the media apart from making profit are mostly the owners of radio. If you go to the DRC, this is what you find. Almost every politician has a radio station, a newspaper, and a television station. And we know that this is just to propagate their interest politically. Now, as journalists, the essential thing is that we must be able to act as professionals. We should not allow ourselves to be used. This has happened in Abuja, I think around 2010, 2011, during the elections. Journalists, we are practically divided on political lines. You have green journalists and you have orange journalists. And there are also some kind of reflection on these issues here in Senegal as we speak and moving towards elections in this country. We must agree to the fact that we are journalists, we are professionals, and politicians have no business whatsoever in the newsroom. We must be able to build the agenda. That mandate, as far as communication or journalism is concerned, belongs to journalists. We must be able to set the agenda, and we must also, as journalists, be able to build the agenda. Now, most of the time, we set the agenda, push issues into the public space, allow the public to discuss about them, but we do not build on the agenda. So we create a gap. So as professionals, we must also go a little bit further to try and build the agenda. Now, whatever the case, radio is here to stay. If you go back to beyond 1942, 1945, prior to the advent of television, when television came, some communication scholars actually said that that was the end of radio because television will give you both image and sound. But we later came to realize that radio cannot just simply be pushed away. In fact, mass communication scholars in Africa have agreed that radio is the most effective medium in Africa because Africa is still largely rural. And one thing we do not mention, radio is one of the medium of mass communication that actually breaks through language barriers for different dialect, and radio is able to break through this huge challenge. And I think that is the most phenomenal. That is the most phenomenal aspect that radio plays, especially with regards to communication in Africa. Now, let me just say one more thing before I close. Presently, as we speak, I know we're talking about elections and democracy in Africa, but I'm not moving far. Recently, there were a group of communication scholars, mass communication scholars that were put together by UNESCO to work on the issue of climate change. And these communication scholars agreed unanimously that radio is the most effective means in the fight against climate change in Africa. And the reasons they table are cardinal. They are just undisputable. Because most of the issues as far as climate change is concerned happen in the rural areas, where some of these people actually even have knowledge with regards to adaptation. But then people, their messages are not actually relayed to the general public. And the radio is one medium that can actually give them that possibility of sharing what they have been able to do to overcome certain challenges with regards to climate change, to be able to build or strengthen their survival with regards to the challenges of climate change. So like most people said, it is still the cheapest means of communication. It's easier to carry. But then I would talk more or less on our side of journalists. We must be able to, one, set the agenda. It is our responsibility, it is our mandate, and we must be able to build on the agenda, irrespective of what the owners of the radio say. Thank you very much.
Indeed, thank you so much, Luis Tomasi, for your comment there, and those words are very, very enriched. Well, we do have but this is Richard Paz Garaba. This is pretty long. Okay, let me see if I can take this. I'm trying to, let's see who this is. Okay, well, this participant says that nevertheless, community media remains the only key tool that can facilitate grassroots citizens' participation in nurturing and sustaining true democracy through creating and using information content that is driven by the needs of the communities for themselves and by themselves. By so doing, the citizens partake in determining their future through developing the community and educating their people in a manner and language that they can understand. This dialogue among communities can be enriched by understanding how development issues affect them, discovering what others think in their communities, and seeing what other communities have achieved. In this light, participatory radio serves as a means of developing the grassroots emancipation. I wish the technicians can scroll this down so that I can see the sender of this message. But thank you for this. This is a very good message and pretty long too. Thank you so much for this message. Just before we round off this conversation, I would like to just have a few words from our partner station in Ghana. Mr. Matthew Zabel, are you there from Pod Radio in Damongo? Mr. Matthew, please put on your mic and let's hear from you. Okay. So while we wait for that, Adolphus is back. Adolphus, thank you so much again for your patience and being with us. In rounding off this program, just your last word and the future of radio going into the next century. I mean, we've seen 100 years. What are you seeing? What are the things that will likely happen, the new trends with the advent of the AI and other technologies?
I will begin with a quote that a statement that I read from someone yesterday on Facebook that radio is useless if only journalists are practicing today for survival. Because this is key. We might say the radio is important, but the radio is not operated in isolation. It's journalists who are operating the radio station. And so, if they can stay the course of remaining ethically balanced, remaining accountable to the people and practicing in the interest of the public or practicing for public interest, then the radio will continue to remain relevant. And unless we do that, then we will be creating gaps in what we do. Having said that, radio is going to remain here, I can say forever, especially in poor countries, in developing countries. In West Africa, we have a population of about 360 million. And of these 360 million people, we have 317 million of them who have access to mobile phones and can have mobile communication. But of this amount, only 25% of people have access to internet, right? And that depends also on the country. Maybe in Liberia, you might just have 15, 16% of people who have access to the internet. The rest of the people depend on radio for access to information. And so for a long time, the radio is going to remain with us. But again, like other speakers have said, how we use the radio, how we manage it, is going to be very fundamental to the relevance of the radio station. And the last one I like to say, I've heard people talk about struggles with maintaining the radio stations,
finances,
right?
yeah.
Finances. Imore, the internet has come. It has come with its own problems, but it has come with opportunities, unlimited opportunities. How we produce content, how we share content is what we should be contemplating on now. Because when you see celebrities, social media influencers making huge sums of money from their bedrooms, it's the content that they produce. We have gone to school. We've been trained to produce media content. So we now have to adapt. And it comes with understanding what society wants, how society is consuming news and information today. If we know this and we can identify the channels to be able to disseminate information, we are able to also tap into the significant resources or opportunities that come with access to digital platforms. So that's what I like to say. Community radio should be able to fund themselves, but they should be able to produce content in ways that will be appealing to young people everywhere, to elderly people. It's just about adaptation, and I think that's what is important in order to keep radio stations alive, but also to keep a significant amount of them out of the hands of politicians and governments. Because if you're relying on adverts, you're not going to have it as maybe you did before, because people are shifting. They are making the switch from analog to digital, right?
Yeah.
So people are no longer placing adverts like that in the newspapers or coming to the radio station. They just do it online. So you also, I mean,
Indeed.
radio managers and radio owners will have to think about that. Those
Indeed.
will be my closing words.
Adolphus, thank you so much for your closing remarks and for being with us on this special program. Well, before we take the closing remarks from our station head, Madam Agnes John Tomasi, I would just like to thank all of our partners from the Gambia, our partners from Liberia, our partners in Ghana there, our partners in Nigeria and Sierra Leone. Thank you so much. And of course, for those joining us from other institutions, we say thank you so much for your time. And let's quickly take our closing remarks because we do have live news coming up in the next 8 minutes. Madam Joan Agnes Tomasi, the floor is yours for your closing remarks, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Imo. Thank you to the team out there. And thank you to the panelists. Adolphus, thank you very much for coming from Ghana. Thank you for being there. Even the one we lost from Nigeria. We hope that next time we'll be together. And those online with us from our partner radios to other different guests, everybody who have participated, I say a big thank you on behalf of the staff of West Africa Democracy Radio. This has been a great discuss. We are very much appreciative of the content to start with, of the quality of the information that we have been able to share. We all have said key points I have taken from what we have discussed. Radio, with all its potential and gains, it It is because of this potential and gains that radio is powerful. And it is because of this power that we as journalists, broadcasters who provide the information should provide quality and relevant information, impartial information. Always work with balance, ensuring that information we provide is done within the ethical limits of our profession. Creativity and innovation is key. Radio is powerful, but what we put out is very, very crucial. So I agree with Adolphus about content. Content is important. If we cannot provide the required content, then we have a problem. And that is why it is critical to note for all of us, especially our partner radio stations. We know it is not easy to have the required funds or the adequate material sometimes to produce programs. But sharing of programs between and amongst ourselves could also help. And that is why when we have good content to share, we freely say everyone is open and free to use it. So you too, if you have content, even between yourselves from different countries, we can share ideas, we can share content. I think this is one way also of helping because production is not cheap. Sometimes I laugh when we say that we provide content and we are even still thinking of how to support again in monetary terms. But when we go out there to fund the content that we produce, and then we share that content with you, then we have done something very great in also contributing to your content provision. So I believe that if we all together share content, then we'll be helping each other in this area of production. Once again, thank you all for participating, and I wish you all the best. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Agnes John Tomasi, Station Manager, West Africa Democracy Radio, for that closing remarks. And a big thanks to all of our partners and our listeners there in Liberia and here in Dakar and across the sub-region online on WADR.org and other platforms. Thank you so much for being a part of this special program celebrating a century of radio. We will do this again next time. I am Imo Edet, and big thanks to all of you for joining us, and we'll have a great afternoon.